is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, Sean Spencer, one half of that dynamic duo that is Let's Talk Football. And ladies and gentlemen, it's Wednesday. So you know what that means. Hump Day! And I'm here with my guy on a different side. Normally I point over here. I'm pointing this way today.
You're mixed up today.
I got to point this way to my guy that is somewhere where I don't know that I would want to be right now because it's 80 in Northern Virginia. So I can only imagine what it is in South Carolina.
No,
it's similar.
It's not summer
it's
yet.
not sticky. Okay.
No,
okay. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Man. I'm here with my guy, Will Kramer. And Will, before I let you just talk, let me first say, as somebody that's felt the highs of being in the national championship game, to somebody that also has felt the lows of having getting so close and snatching it, your South Carolina women were not able to get back to that place. They went undefeated, but to their credit, they lost to a very, very good Caitlin Clark.
To their credit? Whose credit?
I'm sorry. I see winners. See, I understand that. Well, how are you feeling, man? How are you, my friend?
There's a lot of frustration down here over that because in the opinions down here is Iowa played the game of their lives. Yeah. I mean, she barely missed a shot, it seemed like, in that game. And if she wasn't shooting it, the other players were, and they were making it. So it was like they lost to a team that played out of their minds to beat them. And the fact that they whooped up on LSU. South Carolina destroyed LSU when they played them. So it was like watching that title game was it was really bittersweet because it's like they could beat them. Like you're crowning the champs, like crown them, go ahead and crown them. But it's like we could have beat you easily. We did it once before. So that part was kind of tough in that. There's a lot of it's a bitter pill that fans are having to swallow here. That's for sure.
Oh, I believe it. I absolutely believe it. And I feel for you. But listen, you were undefeated up to that point. Last year, you dominated. We saw what you did. And for me, if you don't know, the WNBA draft was yesterday? Mm-hmm. And I thought one of the best moments is when one of Dawn Staley's, one of her women was drafted. And she walked right up there and gave her a hug, and she supports each and every one of her women. She loves that team, and hey, the remarkable job that she's doing. I understand that they lost, but it doesn't take away from how great things were.
Yeah, and even the fact that she encouraged several of them to go. There was a chance that Boston could come back, because of the whole COVID stuff, and honestly. She can make more money through NIL than she can in her contract with the WNBA. So people were like, is that something like that enticing? And Dawn Staley is one that says, you need to go. You can even be even better. The game and the pros may even suit your game better. Time to go. And it's like that is a testament to her as well. It's like you can truly say she's looking out for the best in the girls, and that's only going to bring in more players.
Exactly. But not to go too far on that, but you definitely brought up a point, and that's a shame. That is a crying shame that these girls can make more in college through NIL than what they can get in a professional league in America.
Professional, right?
As a professional, like, come on now. And we've heard stories on top of stories of players going to other countries and playing in other places. Matter of fact, I mean, how far are we away from when Brittany Griner, who had to go across seas to play in a professional league because there was no opportunities for her here. And then obviously she got in the middle of all that stuff. So that's a bigger issue that we do need to address. But I am glad that a lot of attention is being brought onto the NCAA, the women's sport. Yeah, the play is amazing. They're balling out. Some of those games, in my opinion, are better than the men's. And I don't know. I don't want to continue to beat a dead horse and say it's about time because it's been about time. Yeah, they put in just as much work, if not more. Give them their roses, man.
Well, and that's what Dawn was saying. At one point, I think the national championship was finally on network TV, like ESPN covered it. And she was saying, and even the semifinal, I believe, was ESPN. And that was one of her complaints, is like, why are these games not on more accessible channels? And like, look what happens when we're on it. People tune in, and they did. They tuned in for that national championship. That, that before all the controversy that happened, people were into it. And like you said, it's good basketball. It's not hard. I went to one game this year, and yes, the team is incredible, so it's easy to support them. But I went to one game and I got hooked, and I started really paying attention because I was like, this is fun, and we're going to look into getting season tickets next year. Introducing our boys to it. It's very affordable. It's family friendly. So it's just a great product that they got going on. So it's really cool that they're getting so much recognition right now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me find out. Will's two little boys might be the future coaches, working it out, man. Hey, start them young.
My basketball knowledge is pretty limited. I'm even worried about coaching them. I think once they hit like 8 years old, I don't know what to do, guys, now. I don't know the offenses.
I'm sorry, guys. I've done all I can with you.
If it's not a 2-1-2, it's not all I got.
Yo, hey, and real quick, speaking of your boys, you put an amazing picture up. Easter was this weekend. Shout out to you, man. Happy Easter. Happy belated Easter to everybody. What did y'all do? How was that?
Yeah, Easter, we stay here. We keep it low key, just because this is Trisha's busy work time. But honestly, we don't have Friday off. And so to travel up to Virginia it's just too much. And so we keep it just the four of us, but we have a lot of fun with it. We got to dye some eggs on Saturday, Patrick's first time. So he was thrilled to see the eggs turn colors. Nice. Egg hunts happened, at the house. So it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I put a little bit of product in his hair to make it go over real nice. And he looked like he was a teenager.
Yeah. Let's go. I love it, man. The boys are growing up, man. They're gonna be up to that shoulder soon, but I'm not gonna grow them up too quick.
Don't make me get emotional here, Sean.
Right now,
let them be babies.
Right, and another thing that might make you get emotional, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking Washington Football Weekly here on Wednesday. Me, Sean Spencer, my guy over here, Will Kramer. And look, there's a lot of stuff going on, but more importantly, 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. We talked last week about our offense. This week, we're going to go into our defense. But before we do that, there is the big elephant in the room that we all been talking about, and we're still waiting on. Is Dan Snyder going to sell the team? We've heard about different people coming in, potentially buying. We even heard that Josh Harris with, Magic Johnson and some of those guys, they put in their bid. And we heard something else. Bezos withdrew from consideration of buying the Commanders. Can we believe this, A? But B, what does this mean for the bidding, the whole signing of the team?
Yeah, I think this is a bombshell. I think this also means that things are coming to an head, and in the May's owner meeting, they'll have enough information to move forward with voting on a new owner. I think we're actually that much closer to being there. Because we finally got some clarity on Bezos. That's always been, you said, the elephant in the room. That's always been the out there, well, is he going to bid? What about him? And in the last couple weeks, I think we started to hear some leaks from the Snyder camp, basically trying to get him to bid. Yep. There was the report where they came out saying, well, hey, there's no beef between Dan, Tanya, and Jeff. They know that he's not the editor of the paper. He's not in charge of those articles. He's just the owner, as a way to say, no, he can bid. And I think what that was happening, the reason for that was, I think the Josh Harris bid is close to $6 million, but very close to it. But I think Dan was trying to get the highest bidder to come out. And I think we might have got the news that if in multiple reports, AJ Perez of Front Office Sports, he's probably been the most dialed in about this, has reported it. Nikki Javala and Mark Maskey of the Washington Post and John Keim, they're all confirming it. So it sounds like whoever the source is telling everybody, and the source is close to Bezos, to say, we're not in. We're not going after this. So, it's like we may be that much closer to Josh Harris and Magic Johnson, who was on the Today Show talking about potentially being the owner of the Commanders last week.
Ooh,
and
yes.
It's what we talked about, man, with Magic. He's so charismatic. You're just watching it. You start smiling. You hear him laugh. And when he smiles, you can't help but grin with him. It's like, oh, please. Oh, please, please, please.
Just come on. Just come on. Please come on.
Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, again, we're not going to hold our breath till it finally happens and Dan Snyder gets out there. But at the same time, you're starting to see the steps being taken. You're starting to see things where it seems inevitable that this is happening. Now, before we go past this, I want to talk about Bezos, though, because we've heard, it's been widely publicized how Bezos and Snyder ain't buddy, and obviously we know that the number is out there, and Snyder's like, I'm not selling, and Bezos, and we'll see. Now that him being out, and even with him being in that whole consideration, is it me, or is this kind of seem like some of the moves that Bezos and the kind of back and forth with him and Snyder, doesn't that seem kind of Snyder-ish? I mean, are we, if Bezos was the guy, or would we be replacing one tyrant with another?
That's a good point. Yeah. A little. Well, I mean, it's no secret that there are people who work for Amazon that are not a big fans of Jeff Bezos.
Right.
That's also no secret that he is worth how much? He's over 100 billion, and yet he's firing employees. So there's I mean, it's like, is there a chance that they dodged a bullet? Potentially, we don't really know, but no, I mean, I don't think anyone could be as terrible, as much of a tyrant as Dan Snyder. Mm-hmm. But there's some question marks with Jeff Bezos, so where, like, I wasn't team Bezos the whole time, I liked the fact that he would have money, but I had concerns over, like, are we going to go from one bad owner to potentially another, Napoleon ownership.
Yeah. And the thing is, I feel like what we've done, especially as fans, is that the closer this becomes and the more real it becomes, you start to ask those questions, because all of us can say that we said in unison at the end of the season, we don't care if it's Ronald McDonald. We just need Dan Snyder out. But as you start getting close to that point, you start watching the tendencies of people. You haven't heard much about Josh Harris. In fact, Magic, like you said, is almost a mouthpiece. He's the one that's out in front of everybody, while Harris is kind of, behind the scenes, maybe potentially pulling the strings. But you always hear about Bezos. You always hear about what's he in, and not just with this whole situation, but with other situations. And we already are trying to rebuild the culture and rebuild our name. And it begs the question, do we want to bring that type in? So you're talking about, lesser of two evils in a situation, or let's go in an entirely different direction. Because go ahead.
Oh, so you talk about rebuilding a brand, rebuilding an image, and part of the Harris group that's bidding is the Mitchell Rails, who are local guys who started Sports Talk 980 for WTEM way back in the days, and they are very well respected. Mitchell Rails and his brother, and so and they're DC guys. Yeah. They've got connections, and so as you mentioned, if you're trying to rebuild an image, the Harris group appears to be a lot more attractive in that sense, to where these are folks that not only is it great to have Magic Johnson in the inner circles of the NFL, but you've got local guys who are well connected. And Josh Harris as well is from DC area, from Bethesda too. So you've got some folks with that's
Yep. What was that last part? Are you spinning? Can you hear me?
I'm getting close. I'm back. I think I'm back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the last part of that, it went out. We thought we knew. We don't know.
I'll repeat it. Okay. So I know we thought we handled that internet situation. But I'll recap what I was saying is with the Harris group, you've got local ties that are very well respected. You've got Magic Johnson, who circles in the NFL would love to have him on. And you have Josh Harris, who is a established owner of a pro sports team. And so with that, you're kind of getting the perfect set of folks, that local ties, business sense to take over a franchise. And if you're trying to rehab an image, you couldn't ask for a better situation.
Exactly. So, hey, we will, as just like the reporters, John Keim, all of them, they'll get it out as soon as they hear. As soon as we catch wind, we are most likely going to have a emergency pod, time, and jobs and everything willing. And we're going to come on here and break the news, hopefully sooner than later. But let's make it happen. Do you think this is something that happens before? I know you talked about potentially after the draft, but could this be something that happens before the draft?
I don't think so. I think the NFL wants to keep this squashed until after so they can make headlines. But I think it's coming soon. I mean, Jason Wright, the way he's been doing interviews, makes it sound like this is happening. Because he sees the business opportunities of a new owner. Or more importantly, he sees the business opportunities with Dan Snyder out of the picture.
Yes. Oh, yeah. People are willing to talk. People are definitely willing to talk to us. Oh, man. So we got to go ahead and move on. We appreciate you guys all being here with us. Alex, I don't know if you're still here with us, but I wanted to bring this comment up. Thought the comment of being so close to Natty was referencing my Dukes. Still not over it. My man, I feel for you. You almost got us to the title, man.
So funny.
Appreciate you guys watching. Hey, and speaking of my guy, Alex Loosemore, check us out Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern. We do Let's Talk College Football. And recently we have been bringing you up to speed on all the major positions. Who are the top 5 guys? Who are some sleepers? How did last year's players do at said position? And similar to what we did last week on this show, we went into the offense, talked about, what positions we need. One of the things we actually discussed is that for the most part with our offense, we pretty much know the prime positions. Maybe O-line is somewhere we definitely want to focus on, but everything else in our skill position, we're pretty certain on who's going where, and it's really just a depth situation for us on offense. On defense, albeit we did take care of Daron Payne in that extension, and we did get another lineman in, Abdullah. We re-signed some guys, but this is the place where not just this year, but past several years, we have been talking about we need to work on, we need to focus on it. And I mean, let's start right here. A couple years ago, we were terrible. We got top 5 pick. We got Chase Young. Okay. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the rookie of the year, did amazing, 7.5 sacks for us. But like you alluded to earlier, like last week, it wasn't necessarily the sacks, because 7.5 sacks is a fairly pedestrian number, but it was the impact. It was the forced fumbles, the recovered fumbles, the returns for a touchdown, just the threat that he imposed on a defense to where they had to bring in the tight end or the running back to chip him and everything. Unfortunately, with the injury and him kind of having issues with coming back and then finally coming back, it begs the question you have to ask, do we take his 5th-year option? Do we keep him around? We know what they did for Daron Payne, and we know what Ron Rivera said, that, we're going to, let's make him earn it kind of deal. I mean, it feels sacrilegious to say, let's make him a trade bait or get him out of here or anything like that. But realistically, like, should we be shopping him, or what do you think?
Yeah, this has become a hot button issue. Sports talk, bloggers, the podcasters, bloggers. Does people blog anymore? But and it's people have all kinds of opinions on this, and I see both sides of it. Basically, what they're kind of saying is, and this is what the team is saying right now, is do we need to let Chase Young earn it the way we made Daron Payne earn it, and essentially play this year, which would be his 4th year, with a situation where if you produce, we will look into paying you. The only problem with that is they have Montez Sweat on the team already, who is in the last year of his contract. His 5th year is this upcoming season. So you have a chance to have both starting defensive ends, young guys, eligible for free agency if you don't keep them. if you don't pick up his 5th-year option. Now they have until May, so they have until after the draft. So essentially, we will have a chance to see what happens in the draft to see is that affecting what they're doing. If it's me, I think you pick it up. Mm-hmm. And I've got 2 reasons for it. The very first one, the more logical one, is money. Okay. Mm-hmm. As of today, if you pick up his 5th-year option, he will lock in a contract of $17 million in 2024, the following season. Okay, so this fall is going to be year 4. Year 5, he'll be $17 million. In year 4, he's about 10. His salary moves up to $10 million, then it goes to 17. If you were to allow him to if you don't pick up his 5th-year option, you have the ability to franchise tag him. Okay, you could franchise one of the two, Montez or Chase. But if you franchise if you franchise Chase Young, it would be, as of today, $21 million. So you're talking a $4 million difference right there in the salary cap, and that's just today. By the time that happens, comes next spring, they could be up to like 23. If you're talking $4 to $6 million, that's a starter. That's a big contributor. That $4 to $6 million is what we were paying Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner to be our starting guards this past year. Yep. So if you're talking about an actual starting position, it would make more sense to save the money by picking up his 5th-year option, locking him in at $17 million, and giving yourself a chance to give yourself 2 years to be evaluating. So that right there, from the dollar standpoint, is why I think you should do it. The second reason I think you have to do it is for reputation, franchise value. Yep. This guy was a generational pass rush talent. Yes. He looked to be the part his rookie year. He had problems his sophomore year. He had problems with the coaching staff and what they were doing, and they were frustrated with him. But then he got hurt, and he had a really bad knee injury, that way worse than what they led on. And shame on them, shame on Chase Young's camp for making us think that it's only going to be 3 or 4 weeks into the season and he'll be back, when it was way longer than that. So last year was a lost year. So you got to give him a chance to prove himself in 2023. This season, we got to give him a chance, and you need to give him a chance to prove himself in 2024, because this is the number 2 overall pick. What if you let him go? He goes to Montez Sweat gives you 8 to 9 sacks a year. He's a good player. But what if Chase Young becomes Chase Young for somebody else?
Exactly.
You can't take that as a reputation. That right there, Ron, will get you fired.
Right. Absolutely. And then, and I think the other glaring issue is, if you make that move, just from a cultural perspective, you might be just torpedoing your shot to get these fans to be on board. We know, we think about your boy, Taylor Heineke. Now, he lacked all the extra talent, but they loved him. And you know who else loved him? Our boy Chase Young. The fans love Chase just as much. Even throughout the injuries, we're all still giving him the benefit of the doubt, because we're like, well, this is that guy. This is the guy that, this is our Bosa, essentially. This is our guy that's supposed to come and do these things. So it frustrates you to think, because it's like you're not getting, from a business standpoint, you're wasting the money. You're not getting anything back from this. He's not really producing. And then, you start going with different thoughts of it's in his head and what's really happening and this and that. But it's like you said, you have to give him that chance. And then who are we as a team if we're like, oh, we gave up on you after a year, albeit the injury, but that's even worse.
Right.
If you had this injury, you were out, so you couldn't do anything about it. And now all of a sudden, okay, we're just going to cut. That's why I wanted to keep Daron Payne. That's why I think I agree. I want to keep Chase Young, because of the fact that I finally feel like in this day and age, when all you hear about is NIL, all you hear about is transferring, all you hear about is coaches going to different places, Aaron Rodgers, Jets, Russell, the Broncos, you hear about guys moving. One of the things that we're missing out on is the loyalty. You know what I mean? Building that community. You think about those teams in the 70s with the Steelers, those fans knew those players. Now, it was different because they couldn't really go anywhere, but a lot of they stayed there. Just like with us and the Hogs. I met Daryl Green. Daryl Green's wife used to do my older sister's hair. You know what I mean? She went to church with them. I met Art Monk, Ricky Irvins. I met those guys, and they went to community barbershops, community things that were in the community. So we knew them. There's a sense of Like he's like me. Like there's a feeling, a connection there. And I feel like Chase Young was the stopgap of everything else. Everything before that, when we had Josh Johnson playing, the late Dwayne Haskins was in it, like we were really sinking. We were just going downhill. Gruden was our coach. Bringing in the Chase Young was kind of the turn for us, where it was like, even that season was kind of like, oh man, like things were terrible early. And he was one to help pick it up and turn things around for us. I just don't think, especially with Rivera, this being his potential last year, I just don't think he can survive that. Like you were saying, I feel like if you were to get rid of him, get rid of Chase, you might as well get rid of the fans, because I think a lot of the fans would just be like, we're done with you. We're done. And people that really aren't on board with Rivera in the first place. So yeah, I agree that we should keep him. I just and that's the other thing. I just don't foresee anything that would be worth potentially sending him out for a draft, free agency, nothing. Like I mean, talk to me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like I think you got to keep him around. But that brings the question, and this is kind of what started this. Was there was an article that was written that listed the like 5 to 10 players in the NFL that are the most tradable before the draft, and they said Montez Sweat was one of them. So essentially, it's now you also got to be thinking of it. Okay, if we're already thinking we should keep Chase Young around, so we're paying. At one point, we're going to be paying Jonathan Allen 17. We're paying Daron Payne 20. We're paying Chase Young 17. Can we afford to go after Montez Sweat after this season if you are going to keep Chase around? Or let's make Ablo extremely happy. Do we need to be trading him before it's too late? And before the draft is when this is the most value you can get from somebody. Yeah. You know, it was right before this draft. So do we need to be looking into trading Montez Sweat? I want to kick it to you because I think this is a very hard question for you to answer, because I know you love these guys.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it'd be harder for me to let go of Chase than would Montez. And the reason being is all I've heard from Montez over the last couple of years, obviously in 2020 was the whole COVID thing. You know, and that really rubbed me the wrong way just because of our coach being so more susceptible because of the cancer. And Montez kind of put his foot down and said, this is what I'm doing, and they're not showing me things. And it really, that really messed with me. So that to me showed a selfish side. Then obviously that second year after 2020, he came in the offseason and Montez was talking a whole bunch of, we're going to break the tag team sack record and we're going to do this. And totally bombed. Okay. Now I'll give him credit for what he did this past year, because I felt like she showed he came alive. And that was mainly when Chase was not there. So that was quite interesting, but it was a different coaching. We had Ganina there. Del Rio was kind of getting with, I think we were it was a different mindset, as opposed in 2020, it was kind of like, you guys free for all. Whoever gets to the quarterback will figure it out. Nobody's worrying about pass lanes. And that bit us in the butt in 2021. And then this past year, it's kind of like, okay, how we figured out how to work with each other. How does my rush help you guys elevate your play and vice versa? It's going to be interesting to see Chase bring that in. But as far as with Montez, I kind of feel like with him, I'd be less attached to. If the offer came in for him, I feel like that would be something where somebody would be getting a quality player. And if we were to turn it around and get something on the back end, I would not have as much of an issue with it. Now, part of that goes to some of the guys that we're going to talk about as to where we might draft or things like that. But I think the other part is we know the ceiling of Chase Young. We know how high he could go. We've seen glimpses of some of the things that he can do when 100% healthy. Montez can ball without a doubt. And in all honesty, I don't want to lose any of them. But since you're going to pose the question that I have to pick one or the other, I'm taking Chase. I'm taking Chase. And it's a gamble because it's more on your expectation of his potential, what you expect him to do in the coming years. And Montez, I've seen him over the past 3. I would hate to lose either of them, but Montez, I feel like we could get a better offer right now, and they would be able to come in and contribute right away. As opposed to if we're doing Chase, they still have to see, is he going to pass the physical? Because if you don't pass the physical, it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things, but I would get Montez out and see what we can get. See how high we can get a draft pick, potentially a second rounder or something like that. I mean, I would love to get something like that for him.
Well, you said at the very end, I think that is the most key part, is what we don't know is Chase's health. Yeah. We don't know if this knee injury is going to be something that he just needs time and he'll be back to himself, or is it going to significantly hamper him for the rest of his career? Right. It certainly took away a whole season, and some of it seemed to be mental in there, which was almost even more like concerning if you're getting cleared by the doctors, but you aren't feeling comfortable to play out there. And then the other part that you mentioned was, in this season, Montez seemed to really gel with Allen and Payne, and understanding he was willing to take a step back on his own stats for the good of the team, where he recognized, well, if I cut inside and you go around me, we get a sack. Or if I come in and get the double team, you're now single teamed and you can make the play. So they work together as a team. So getting rid of that's kind of tough. It's like they gelled well. I'm with you where if you have to pick between one or the other, you would pick Chase right now because of the potential that we want to see, that he hasn't tapped that yet. But honestly, if I'm Ron Rivera, I would, and this would be if Ab is tuning in later on, he'll be, man, if I'm Ron, I would keep them both and let it ride out, because Ron's coaching for his job this year.
Yeah.
So if you're coaching for your job, why don't you put the 4 best guys out there on the field?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because a couple of years ago, I also take we took the Pittsburgh Steeler Pittsburgh Steeler Baltimore Ravens route of, we let somebody go in free agency and we drafted his replacement. We let Preston Smith go to the Packers. He signed a $50 million deal. I think his first season, he had close to 12 sacks and 50 tackles. He had a really big impact that first year. We drafted Montez Sweat, who had 8 sacks and not as many tackles, but we felt good about our replacement and we saved money. But Preston had a big season that first year when he left. And so it shows 2 things. One, that you can replace these guys through the draft if you need to, and maybe that is the route we should do as well. But they also can go out and play better than what they did for you, than what your replacement is. So it's sort of you also need to be careful. Is the grass greener by letting them walk because you're saving money? Or is it better to have what you have in-house and be locking up your best set of players, your top 4 players outside of Terry? Are the defensive line, and is it best to keep them around as long as you can until you physically can, or if you monetarily cannot keep them around?
Right. And honestly, I mean, that opens up a whole bunch of questions, because then you start asking, 2 years ago, Chase was definitely one of our top 4 players, but then you look at it right now and it's like, I mean, I guess we could say that he is up there if you're going to. But I mean, it's from what he's been able to do, and it's not on him for the injury, but still, best ability is availability. If you're not on the field, I can't, how can I vouch for that? So,
right.
It's going to be quite interesting. I like that. If I don't have to choose, Will, I'm going to keep both. I'm going to keep them both and ride it out. But for me, I think it'd be almost easier because of what you said at the end or at the beginning of what you were saying, is that we talked about how the issue was that the D-line was not playing complementary. And then all of a sudden, when injury Chase was out, you start seeing Sweat and all of them do those things and play complementary. But the other part about it is we had a lot of guys that came in to play in the absence of Chase. And they didn't put up, super electrifying numbers and everything, but they contributed and they did enough to at least let the other 3, wreak havoc.
Yeah.
And then it begs the question, because you want to have this, D-line as your studs and everything like that. But then at the same time, why not get not him per se, not Matt Ioannidis, but a contributor of that sort that might get you 5 or 6 sacks, might only get you, 50 or some odd tackles, but get you 5 or 6 tackles for losses, deflected pass, does the little stuff, the stuff that people aren't, not in the chat, all the stuff that we used to say about Daron Payne, the stuff that didn't show up in the stat sheet. These guys came in and were able to do that and gel together. So, I mean, we all want Chase to come back and be able to fit right in and gel with the group. But the fact of the matter is he has been out for the better part of 2 years. And you know what I mean? So it's a gamble. We're trying to figure out where to go. But this is a huge question. And I'm glad you mentioned it. Everybody's discussing it because, like I said before, some people are sacrilegious. Some people it's Chase, and you know what I mean, and the rest is Terry, Chase, and the rest. You know what I mean, yeah. and I understand it. I absolutely understand it. But the draft is right around the corner. We're looking for players. We're going to dive into this. Will, this is I feel like we could have just put on the tape from last year, the year before, and the year before off season, and just played it again. We need linebackers. We need secondary. Our D-line is good. Or we're more secure as far as locking up those 2 middle guys. But still, could we get better? Like, what are we in need of? And not even just like a skill, like a position or a player or something like that. But what is it like? Is it a hunger? Is it is it what Chase had that first year? Like, what are we in need of that the draft might help us?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, and what's kind of exciting about tonight's conversation and the draft is going to be, we've got some holes that we have to fill. You said it last year. Everybody outside of Ashburn, Virginia, was wondering why we weren't doing more for our linebackers than they were. Yep. And we are rinse and repeat saying, we need depth at linebackers. So we signed Cody Barton to replace Cole Holcomb, and you have Jamin Davis, but what happens if one of those guys goes down? We're in no different of a sense. We're putting out Milo Eifler, as our depth chart. We have to, improve that, so we can draft an impactful player who's going to get playing time from day one. Our corners, same situation when Benjamin St. Juste gets hurt for the 3rd season in a row. What are we doing? Who's going to be coming out there to fill his role? We added a depth chart in Cam Dantzler, but that's not a starter. It's great that he's got over 60 starts in the 4 seasons he's been playing. That's fantastic. Love that as my 4th corner. So I'm not putting Danny Johnson out there, but we need more impactful players. And so that's what is exciting about this draft is because, when we see it, there's a chance if they're listening to us that they will plug in some holes with exciting players who are going to get a chance to play from day one versus a 3rd running back or 3rd quarterback,
right.
or undrafted free agents as we had last year. As great as that story was when at the 53, when we had 2 guys that were undrafted that made it from linebacker, that's not exactly the best way to build depth. No. That you want to be relying on depth. Let them come through the practice squad and earn their way on.
Right. And I think this is the year that we finally are kind of in a position where we could go deep in the draft and really go defense. Like we can really do it because, like you said, we're pretty set on offense, and there's no big, huge need. O-line, yes, but we're good. But defense, there are holes. And like you said, the flashy picks, the guys that we need to. But it's like, I think we're going to have to take some chances. I think we might have to get a splash. We might have to go after something. And no, I'm not talking about, we talked about earlier about getting a tight end, although why?
I was going to say that means that you can't get a tight end.
If you want to get a tight end,
you saw my smirk. I gave it away.
Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, I'm telling you, we're going to do it. Tight ends, baby. But this isn't like the last 2 years where we got Fitzpatrick and then all of a sudden it was just down from there. And then Wentz last year, it was down from there. We are making serious moves, and we have an opportunity to make serious moves right now in this draft. And that is very rich in second corners. Solid has some solid linebackers that we can pick up on that we need to bite bullet go after. But before we get to even to those two, we just mentioned our D line. Mm-hmm. We just talked about Chase Young, Montez Sweat. these two guys, we in a perfect world, we can keep them, we can pay them both, and they'll be playing top tier football. Unfortunately, we live in reality, so we have to make some of these decisions. What do we look for here? And is this a depth? Is this just, hey, let's just get some bodies to fill in the behind them, or are we really looking for a replacement like we talked about?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on what happens in the days up to the draft. If we were to make a trade of, say, Montez Sweat or Chase Young, then I would say, yeah, we need to draft his replacement. Or if we were to trade back in the draft, I would then kind of change my philosophy to say I'm okay getting a someone else that can.
Tight end.
No, I'm not going there. I'm okay getting somebody that would be able to come be a part of that rotational piece, the way that they were doing with our D tackles, to be someone that can be better than James Smith-Williams, than Casey Toohill, than F.A. Obata, someone that's probably has more talent. I'm okay with that, knowing that we would have more picks to address the O-line and corners and some of the other holes that we have. But I think what you're kind of seeing from the team, or as you mentioned, what made them successful last year, is you're going to want to have somebody who's a disciplined player on the line, who's unselfish, who's willing to recognize it. I don't get to rush upfield. My job is to occupy this tackle because the linebacker or Jonathan, I'm taking up space for Jonathan Allen to make a play.
Right.
And so, I think that's kind of what you're looking for there. You may not be looking for the guy who's going to be our next double-digit sack person, but are you looking for someone who can do some of the dirty work?
Right. So, and that's and I love that you said that. Like somebody that's disciplined, but somebody that is not afraid to kind of be obedient, to play within the system. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like we're going to be in the running for any of these franchise changers, the Will Andersons, the Tyrees, shoot, Nolan Smith has been going up there. We don't even know how that's going to play out with him, but we're not going to get one of those guys that can just do it. You just put them in space. We're going to need to get a guy maybe like a Van Ness.
Ryan Kerrigan 2.0.
I'm saying 6'5", 272, can play edge and D tackle. That is the type of thing that I need. Just like with our offense, how we have guys that are position flex, they can play a lot of different positions. I really feel like what he could potentially be able to bring to the table would be huge. He has got ideal size, he's got elite power. In his final year, he started to play elite. He didn't really get much time at times before that, but I mean, I just think he's one of those type of guys that is going to be able to play. We know what Iowa football is, just like Wisconsin. Those guys, they play within the system. They play complementary football. Yeah, my favorite word last year, you know what I mean, or my favorite phrase. So I somebody like him that is coachable, that we can bring in, and that could, if we need him inside, put him inside. If we need him outside, if we need him far outside or outside linebacker, rush that. We can put him in any of those spots. That's kind of something I'm looking at. Athletic, but coachable. Yep. You know what I mean? Impact, but discipline. Those type of things.
Yep, I'm with you. That's one of the guys that I would have on my radar. And I will say this. If we do nothing before the draft, and our 16th pick is on one of these defensive linemen, I'm not going to be very happy. I will say that because I feel like the hole at offensive line, we need one more starter there, and then the hole at corner is way more important. So if that happens, I will understand, but I'll be like, but if, like I said, if we were to trade back, right, but if we were to get another second round pick where you could be addressing these guys, okay. Now there's some luxury here, or in the second round, because I'm with you. Lucas Van Ness that's exactly who is someone that I'd be interested in, but potentially in the second round. I don't know if he would be there by this time. And I said his name way early in January when Jack was on the show, I think. I don't know if you had to hop off at that point. I'm not even going to pronounce this guy's name. I'm going to say his name is AA, and he's from Northwestern.
Northwestern, yeah.
And it's because he's a little bit of a bigger guy. He was his tape is phenomenal. He's been rising because of it. And he is bigger than Chase and Montez. So he would bring a new element into it where on that other side is you got a little bit of a bigger body, a powerful guy, but he's not going to be this speed rusher. But it brings another element to the team, to the line, and what Jack Del Rio can work with. So, I would be saying if we wanted to address the defensive line, AA in the second round, something like that could be something that I would get a little excited about.
Yeah, and now I know you said he wasn't fast, but he ran a 4.4 at the combine.
Did he really?
So,
holy smokes!
Yeah, he could move a 4.49, so he could definitely move. One other guy I wanted to look at, and this is definitely later. This is kind of where I can't think of the name of the guy from. I think it was from Montana last year that we were trying. Troy Anderson.
Troy Anderson, yeah.
Yeah, the guy we were looking at. This is somebody that's going to be similar to him, in my opinion, that's going to drop. But at one point, he was leading the SEC in sacks. Drew Sanders, he's a linebacker and edge. He's going to be more outside, more speed. He's got 6'4", 235, so he's not going to be inside. But he ran a 4.340. Totally, he transferred from Alabama to Arkansas and was leading the league in sack. And they got a guy that over there named Bumper Pool, who's their main defensive, stud or whatever. But Drew Sanders was quietly stealing the show this past year. Honestly, he's one of those guys that, like Troy Anderson last year, like the guy from Wisconsin that we were looking at last year. These are some of the guys that I feel like, man, they could get into the system, learn from what they're doing, and then make these impact plays. But again, position flex. Not only are we dealing with edge where we don't necessarily need, it's not as imperative that we need to have him as right now. Linebacker is somewhere where we definitely need to. So if we can have him as a roving linebacker or an edge rusher, and so he can jump back into the
chess piece.
Right. And that's something that I think would benefit us more, because then it's going to make that offense think, okay, is he rushing or is he dropping back? Because he has the ability to do both. And that's something that we need. As we've seen last couple of years, our linebackers ain't really covering, anything out of the backfield, or can't really. Jamin's got the speed and everything, but again, it's getting him to play within himself and getting him to play with his instincts. I think getting a guy like this who can do both really kind of puts that offense on edge. So, again, we don't need it, but it kind of lends to helping another position, but a body in this position, just in case things don't work out for those two guys we talked about.
Exactly. No, that's no different than there was a lot of talk that we had some interest last year in Kyle Hamilton, that the Ravens, the safety that the Ravens got, because that idea of he can play either safety positions, he could play corner, he could play Buffalo nickel. It would be the same thing, only closer to the line of scrimmage. Is he going to play along the D line? Is he going to be a linebacker? Where can you mix and match him? That's a great suggestion that you had. So I've got somebody that I'm hoping falls in the draft, and you and Alex mentioned him, and I've mentioned him before, so you're not going to be surprised by this. All right, but I don't understand why he's listed as a edge defender, and I guess it's because he did this in college, but he doesn't have the body for it in the pros. Okay, and it's my guy from Wisconsin, Nick Herbig. All right. And I'll tell you why I want him to fall to us. Yes. If we draft Nick Herbig, I might get my first Commanders jersey. Okay.
Let's go.
Wait.
You don't have one already?
No, I do not. No.
The future.
I can't buy the Commanders jersey until Snyder sells. That's been my rule.
No, I understand that. I get that.
Yeah. That I want to be careful, because when I buy jerseys, they usually leave. So I got to be really getting LeVar Arringtons and Fred Smoots, and then they're gone.
My goodness.
Yeah. But let me tell you about Nick Herbig and what excites me about him. So he is undersized to be an edge guy, but that's what he played at Wisconsin. He's 228, 230 pounds. But he's got a knack for blitzing. And just like you were talking about with Drew Sanders, is if you can move him around, he was a phenomenal rusher for Wisconsin. I saw that's, he put so much pressure on the quarterbacks. But the other thing about him is he's good in pass coverage. What do we need? Linebackers who can cover. So it's like this guy too, kind of what you're talking about, probably not as athletic, not as fast as Drew Sanders, could be a little bit of a chess piece, and someone that could kind of probably grow into an inside linebacker role. more so than being this edge guy. So I'm really surprised in all the stuff that he's listed as edge, because I don't think he's got the body to handle it, but he has some abilities that could be helpful for us.
And I like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And anytime you talk about a defensive guy from Iowa, Wisconsin, some of those meat grinders. Oh, yeah, I love that. Oh, I absolutely love that.
Well, I mean, the guy that I love that we wouldn't have a chance with, and it doesn't fit our team, is Wisconsin's guy, Keanu Benton. I mean, that's the defensive tackle I would love to have, but that's not our need, and we're not going to, get him. But he's a solid player.
So that's one of the reasons I put it as D line, because if there is a need on the defensive line, it would be on more of edge than it would D tackle. Yes. We signed we had the extension for Daron Payne this year. Jonathan Allen got paid a year ago. Fadarius Mathis will be hopefully coming back from injury. We got Ridgeway that we brought. So we're set at D tackle. Is this a 7th round pick that we may get for depth or something, or do we just totally forego D tackle altogether?
If it's me, I'm not doing anything. And honestly, I don't have a whole lot of prospects on my D-line list because I've only focused on the outside. It's, if anything, if you wanted to, my guy AA can go inside and out, so you could go with that if you wanted to. But yeah, it's like I think that position is pretty well stocked up right now. Plus, we got Benning Potoia, who shined in the Dallas game.
Yes, that is right. as did some other guys. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, he did.
So all right, let's go ahead and move on down the list. And look, this is I feel for you that have watched us year in and year out, and you feel like this is just a broken record, talking about it again and again and again. But I'm sorry, people. Washington just does not seem to get. We don't seem to go after it. It's just not our. It's not what we're. It's not our focus. I don't know. Yeah, they absolutely do. And look. I know you're saying, hey, we got Jamin Davis a couple years back, and it just has not led to what we expected from him. There may or may not have been somebody that said there was going to be a meteoric rise from said player.
It was a small meteor.
It's a small jump, But I mean, you can see that he's kind of starting to get it. And one of the things we've talked about is having that guy in the middle so we can allow him to go off instincts, read and react, and just kind of move to the ball quicker. You mentioned us getting Cody Barton from Seattle. I mean, we'll see. The jury's still out on him because I don't know about you, but I haven't really done any deep dive on him or how he's played. So I'm still up in the air on that. But obviously, it's kind of we're all kind of gun shy on picking up a linebacker in the first round,
right?
But first, third, or like second, maybe late second, if we get another pick in the second, third round, when do we feel like we should go after this position, and how high do we take a potential linebacker?
That's a great question. Or when do they might be also something we keep in mind. I would be surprised if we drafted somebody before the 3rd round, almost to where I kind of think this is going to be a weekend selection. That Thursday and Friday, rounds 1 through 3, we'll be addressing other positions. Yeah. So that maybe they sneak in round 3 is the pick, but I kind of feel like this is going to be around 4 or 5 type situation.
I like that. And look, we as we've talked about. Like, we need somebody that can direct the defense. We need somebody that can come in here and work with Jack Del Rio, work with those guys, call the plays, and give the other players the opportunity to be able to play and, like I mentioned, read and react without having to sit here and think so much about it like Jamin was doing his first year. So I guess my question would be, since we have chosen not to really go and get a big name guy, Wagner was out there, but he's back in Seattle. We didn't go after him for a 1-year deal. We went and got his backup, so that shows kind of where we feel. I mean, do you think we're going to do something right here? Like, I mean, I see some guys, but nobody says 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round. Like, nobody says I need to get that guy early.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's also partly because of the way they devalue the position, like you mentioned. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, in their opinion, by signing Cody Barton and having Jamin Davis, they've got their two starters. And
Yeah.
if everything works out the way they want it to, those are the only two that are going to be on the field. Our concern is behind those two, if injuries happen the way they happen this year, is Kaliki Hudson would be the next guy who they like, but he's also going to, I think, his fourth year. And in 3 seasons, he hasn't been getting on the field for anything other than special teams. They said that he impressed them against Dallas the last game, but finally, is that enough to say that we don't need to draft somebody? And then we've got David Mayo after that. And it's like that this is the depth that we got to improve. But if they're really mostly saying, well, we got our starters figured out, they may not be valuing these guys the way we are too. And so that's round 4 or 5, they may be like, okay, now it's time to bring in someone. So I say that to say somebody like a Jack Campbell of Iowa, who's a little bit of a bigger guy, may not be someone that they're interested in, because he could go in the 2nd or 3rd round. And they may be like, nope, we're not going after that yet. We have starters. He's a starter. We don't need that. We need depth pieces. They brought in 2 guys already as part of their top 30 visits. One is the guy who was the Senior Bowl star. So this is kind of exciting. Dayon Henley of Washington State. Yeah. He's fast. He's only 232 pounds, so he can move. He's more of a the sideline to sideline type linebacker. And then they brought in a guy from Texas, DeMarvion Overshown, as well. So they brought in 2 guys. Oh, that makes you excited.
Oh, yes.
You like that?
That was my guy. This guy used to be a safety. They converted him to playing linebacker. This guy is quick, versatile. If you watch that Alabama versus Texas game, he had a heck of a game in that one, and almost was able to help them prevail, but definitely shut down an Alabama offense with a Heisman finalist in Bryce Young in there. So love what DeMarvion Overshown brings to the table. So but that's definitely down the line in the pick. So I'm with you on that. I
like that you recognize him, because I don't know who he is, but what I love what you said there. What we've found here is they're looking for guys who can run. They're looking for speed. Yep. They're looking to get these lighter linebackers. It's kind of like, do you remember years ago, Dexter Coakley basically got taken out of the league because he was too small? Like Dexter Coakley would fit this brand of NFL because he could run. Those are the types of linebackers. There's 2 others that could be a little bit further down that I think they could look at. From Auburn, his last name is Popoe. He ran a 4.39 40. Like, what? They got then Tulane has a linebacker, Dorian Williams, who ran a 4.49 40. These guys got speed, and Williams is supposed to be a coverage linebacker, which, like we said earlier, that's what we need. So I think you may look at what they're looking for, someone who's in that 230 pounds, someone who can run. A converted safety, like you mentioned, is probably somebody that they're looking at. There's one other guy that I don't know if he'll slide up or down because of this injury. Had he not gotten hurt, he probably would be one of the top linebackers in this draft. He's coming from NC State. Last year was his comeback season. His name is Isaiah Moore. And there's a lot of talk of people comparing him to Jermaine Pratt. And I remember really liking Jermaine Pratt coming out of NC State. And he's with Cincinnati, I believe, right now. So if he's sliding because of, last year was his recovery year from his I think it was a knee injury, that could be somebody that comes in that could really be, you mentioned, the quarterback. This guy can do it. So that may be someone to kind of keep our eye on. I saw him, and there was a lot of praise on folks who were evaluating him. I was like, ooh, maybe he could be one of those 5th or 6th round guys that really makes an impact.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. DeMarvion Overshown was the guy that I was sitting here hyped about. His size, his speed. I love what he brought to the table. I watched him play, so I love that one. Yvonne Pace Jr. transferred over to Cincinnati. I think he played, I can't remember if he played like UMass or it was one of those like American schools or not even maybe Sun Belt, but he was.
Don't knock the Sun Belt.
No, well, but he was, what I'm saying is that when he was there 2 years ago, he was a conference player, defensive player of the year. Ooh. And then transferred over to Cincinnati. Now he's 5'10", 230. and he's actually a 4.8 speed, but it's the instinct. He has a powerful lower body, and he can hold up at a point of attack. He's a great run defender. You know what I mean? He's very instinctive. So where he might not have the speed like some of the other guys on there, he's got the know-how. He's got those great football IQ. When we were talking about, we're actually going to bring up linebackers. When we were talking about it, me and Alex, he was talking about his guy, Mike Morris, who's edge and linebacker collectively. He's bigger in 275, 6'5", so which makes it that he's running a 4.9. He's not running very quick, but it's another one of these instinctive guys. Another one of these guys that's very effective getting in the mix, shutting down the run, and then can move around and can diagnose a play. Okay. You know, he can see it when it's coming.
Does that mean he's a David Mayo clone, or
he's from Michigan, so I'm giving my guy Alex some love right now. That's where we're going. And another guy in here, a guy that I saw up close and personal out of Appalachian State, Nick Hampton, 6'2", 236. He has speed, okay, for 4.5, and, you know, that is what that is, but he can run down the running backs in there, but at the same time can turn around and play coverage. This goes back to what we were talking about. Playing the backs out of the backfield, the crossing route, the tight end, those type of things. Having somebody that can run with those guys is going to be key. These are all guys that are later, third, fourth round picks, you know what I mean, that could potentially drop even further. Right. But they're all guys that are solid contributors that could really make it kind of happen. You said more out of NC State, right? Mm-hmm. That you were saying. His counterpart at linebacker, Drake Thomas, 6 foot 220, under 230-ish, 4.7 speed, but is the brains. You know what I mean? He's one of those that reads, diagrams, tape, trusts his eyes. So when he sees it, he diagnoses it quick, and he's ready to go. I mean, the anticipation, knows how to avoid the blockers. Like when we're talking about getting somebody that can allow everybody else to kind of do their thing while he's the CPU. So, you know, he's the nucleus. He's controlling it. That is the type of guy that we want. He has a brother that's a wide receiver, Thayer Thomas, I think it is, at NC State. You know, we can potentially bring him in next year for the double combo. I like them. That's the only positive NC State thing you're going to get from me.
I know. You're right, though. When Maryland played them, they talked about how good the inside linebackers were for NC State. That was like their highlight on defense.
I mean, they started off as a top 10 team and then almost got beat by ECU in the first week. But with Leary going out and getting hurt, that definitely dropped them. They still were able to beat us. But anyways, Will Kramer is no longer on the show. I don't know what happened to his camera. I mean, opening week, Will. Opening week. Carolina versus South Carolina. We're taking it.
I'm sorry. What did you just call it? What did you just say? Carolina versus South Carolina. Get out of here.
Because we're the real Carolina. I mean, wasn't Carolina one big state, and then you guys just kind of pitied off of us?
That is typical of the people of the state. Yeah, they don't like to be a part of it. No, that is secession is big for these folks down here. No.
Let's go, Jefferson Davis.
Right.
Look, all right, but one more position, and probably the position that we definitely are focused on the most. We coupled it, cornerbacks with safeties, our secondary. And you mentioned Benjamin St. Juste, you know, great potential. We love what he brings to the table, but he can't stay on the field. We made that move in getting William Jackson III, and then we cut William Jackson III. That didn't plan out. But it seemed like with the younger guys and kind of the guys we had in-house, the communication was getting better. You know, we were working something out. This is somewhere we said if there's any positions that we're going to go for first round, if we keep that 16th pick, it's 2 slots. O-line, secondary. Mm-hmm. This is somewhere where I am absolutely I'm ready to pick somebody up. I want to get somebody that's younger, that's quick, that has the ability. But I think one of the things it was your name on one of the shows we did, position flex. I think that is so key we need to have more people that can do multiple things and do them well enough to be able to contribute. So I want somebody that could play corner. And if he could do it, that's great. And that's all his thing. That's fine. But I also want somebody that could potentially bring in safety, potentially move around and put in different slots. So, I mean, if we get a lockdown guy, I mean, obviously that's great. But I do want somebody that if he said, all right, I need you to play a nickel, I need you to play a safety, I need you to do it. Okay, cool. And they fit in the system. So what are you looking for out of this? And I mean, there's like 4 or 5 guys that could realistically fall to us. So what are you looking at and who are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately my dream scenarios, I want an impact corner. I want a playmaker at corner. I can't remember the last time we had one. I mean, I'll go back to Champ Bailey, as the time we really had somebody that scared the other side, scared the opponent to like, do we want to even throw to this side of the field? I don't know if we've had good players since then. Sean Springs had a pretty good couple-year run with us. We've brought in guys. D'Angelo Hall had some. Yeah,
he had 4 interceptions in a game.
To Jay Cutler. Yeah. I mean, come on.
To the Bears.
Right, exactly. So it's like, we've had some good players, but I feel like we haven't been able to have that elite type corner. So that would be my ultimate goal there, and there's a couple of guys, the Devin Witherspoons, the Christian Gonzalez, is that if they fell to 16, you run up there as quickly as you can and turn in your card. Or now we do it by the phone. Oh, we got a pick. Here it is. The minute the 15 pick is over with, you turn it right in, and you don't even think back to that. But
wait a minute. He's from Vandy. I forgot.
Sorry.
O-Town. Look, that was like one of his only good games, all right, Chris?
It was. Yeah, he really wasn't that impactful.
D'Angelo wasn't great.
No. But so in a sense, we're probably looking for other folks, some of the guys in the middle rounds or potentially a second round corner. So the first name I'm going to bring up, since I'm sure we have some of the same names. So this guy came to Ashburn and visited us. What do you think about Joey Porter Jr.? A lot of people are starting to mock him to us. What are your thoughts? Yeah, he's 6'2". He ran a 4.4 640. He's a press man. He's a ball hawk. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, pedigree. That's the first thing I think. Where does Dad play? Dad is a Steeler. Dad was a monster. And, I mean, it. Hey, we've seen what Frank Gore Jr. is doing, and he's just like what his dad was. I think Joey Porter is going to give us that big, to talk about size, speed, ability, pro ready. I mean, this guy was super talented. I mean, we've seen what he brings to the table out of Penn State. I would, just like you said, run, not walk, not skip, not jog, run, sprint to the podium or to make the call and say, Joey Porter Jr., let's go. Now, obviously, all of our Pittsburgh fans ain't feeling that, but I absolutely would be all about that.
Interesting. I'm nervous.
Really?
And I'm not nervous about the player. I think he's going to be a fantastic pro. I'm nervous about, does he fit our scheme? I'm nervous that is he going to be William Jackson 2.0? A guy, because we don't play that as much press man. Or if he's a press man specialist and we ask him to do zone, can he transfer over to that? Because William Jackson could not. But I also sit here and think about, okay, Jack Del Rio, what do you need to be doing? Do you need to be playing to the strengths of your players? But I also want us to be careful that if Kendall Fuller is going to be playing on the outside and Kendall Fuller is a zone corner, can you have a guy playing man opposite him? Is that causing too much stress in the defense, there? But if your plan is to move Kendall inside, or potentially there's rumors of, do we move him back to safety? Then I'm all for putting BSJ and Joey Porter on the islands and letting them use their size and physicality. Absolutely. If Jack Del Rio is willing to change that up that part of his scheme, I'm with you. You run with this pick in. Yeah. If he's not, I'm worried about, is he the right player for us?
Yeah.
And that has me very concerned.
I could see, and yeah, when you bring up that point about zone versus man, yeah, because that was absolutely the issue that we had. So it makes you wonder with some of these picks. A lot of these, the Witherspoons, Gonzalez, a lot of these guys have the speed, they have the ability, but are they all focused on? Are they all locked down type of guys? Because with me, obviously, it's been beaten over my head the last 2 years, but Keely Ringo, 6'2", 207, and can run the 4.3. We've seen what he's been able to do in impact games. We've seen the kind of pedigree as far as the team that he's been on. I mean, it just guys sitting here chiseled, you know what I mean? Like stacked. I would love to take a shot at that. I mean, if he's there, I mean, I think that'd be a great pick. But it then goes back to what you're saying. Can these guys fit in the system? Because we saw with Chase Young, like we mentioned earlier, he's great for however great he was. He liked to do his little solo thing where it's just him running, doing his, and sometimes that made holes for the quarterback so that they can escape, and it was actually counterproductive for the rest of our line. So can they fall in? And so that's where I really want to. I hope Keely Ringo could, because obviously being a part of that team, being a leader on that team over the last couple of years, I mean, that would be a great addition in my opinion. But like you make a great point.
Well, the only thing I say about Georgia corners that kind of gets me slightly nervous is a couple of years ago, they had an absolute stud that the Giants drafted, and the name has mistaken me. And he was an absolute bust. Now it could have been attitude, it could have been the player versus their scheme. But one of the things with Georgia, they've got such a great defensive line. Are these corners benefiting by the fact that they don't have to cover for that long?
Exactly. And that was my argument over the last 2 years with Anthony Handy and Colin. It was that your D-line is amazing. Your linebackers are wreaking havoc on these quarterbacks. You're not really throwing deep until later in the ball game when the game is pretty much out of hand. You know what I mean? Like, what real competition we have? And they would go back to the national championship. You saw Keely Ringo with the interception. Yeah. But we saw this past year, Ringo was getting torched on sometimes. They went after him, and some of these teams were able to get past him. So it does make you wonder, how good are some of these guys that are in the back end of this great defense?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I too, I was surprised when I saw the size of Ringo and his speed. I was like, oh, well, he's a lot more of that type of, I mean, you and I talk about it all the time. We love the Legion of Boom type corners, big, tall guys, long arms. Like, how else are you supposed to keep up with these receivers if you're not, big like that? So here we go, Sean. My guy, DBU, Maryland. Deontay Banks, 6'2", 205, 4.35 40. He has all the measurables that you would want. And there's a chance he could be, he probably will be there at 16, yes. Yeah. Is it possible if you trade down a little bit, is he there in the 20s as well? And are you able to get a starter or someone to groom as well as an additional pick if you were to trade back? Yeah. I don't know.
Do you take him? Would you take him at 16?
I think it depends on what offensive linemen are around there.
True. I don't know as much about him for me to say yes, I would or no, I would.
I don't think he'll be there in the second round, though. I'll say that.
That's true. So see, I'm thinking you're staying at home with your boy, the ball hawk, Mr. Tiny Tim Cam Smith.
You want to talk about Cam Smith? Because guess what? I live right across from the high school that he played.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, right. So. My concern, and he's actually a zone corner, so that fits what we're looking for. Okay. Yeah. He also was a wide receiver as well in high school, so he's got ball skills, and he likes to bait the corner to thinking that your guy's open so that he can go make a play. Yeah. My only concern with him, the biggest concern would be size. I mean, he ran a 4.43, which it's sad that we're saying 4.43 might not be the fastest, to keep up with some of these guys. Like, come on,
right.
But my concern might be his size in keeping with some of the receivers. And he steadily improved in South Carolina, but I can't tell you that I ever thought of him like I did Gilmore, where I was like, he's good over there. We're good over there. Like, they threw deep on him. I'm like, ooh, okay, he made it.
Okay,
yeah. So I'm not in love with Cam Smith to say that I would want him like in the second round, to where I would rather get a Deonte Banks than Cam Smith if I'm having to get Banks in the first and Smith in the second.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned DJ Turner came to us. He's another guy that's 5'11", short, like under 180, like a tiny guy, but ran a 4.6 40. A 4.2 40. I mean, 4.2 640. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, dang, we might just have. I mean, and he might be another second round guy, or maybe if we went and traded back, something like that. But that speed, with the athleticism, with the ability, like you talked about Cam Smith playing his own. We have Turner that can come in there and also play safety. Like these are the kind of things that we're looking at. So I just not at 16 for me. But if what you're talking about happens and we either potentially trade back or in that second round and they're still available, yes, I think I would take a shot at one of those two. And just because the speed could be very helpful for us. And then, like you said, with Cam Smith, who played wide receiver, that's something to me that I think is going to help us with some of these guys. First and foremost, he's going to go up against Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel, and De'Ami Brown, if you're still there, every day in practice. You know what I mean? But then on top of that, then you're going to get out there and you're knowing when these guys are coming out of their breaks. It's instinctive, and that I really like. There wasn't a lot, and you know this, you can vouch for me. There wasn't a lot of positives earlier in the season for you guys when it came to what was going on. But one thing I always kept hearing was amid all the struggles, the ball hawk Cam Smith. He was sitting here making plays and still keeping that defense relevant and keeping them in there. But like you told me many a times, that's about all they got out there, with them. He's the only one showing up until later in the year when you guys caught fire. So
right. Yeah. Well, so you mentioned DJ Turner. We mentioned Cam Smith. These all have guys that have some frames that we're a little bit concerned about. Here's another one that's getting mocked to us a lot. Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State, 5'11", 170 pounds if he's soaking wet out of the pool. But they also say he's a huge playmaker, and he has great instincts and playmaking ability. Dude is in 160 pounds. What are your thoughts, Sean?
Right. It's really hard for me. Well, you know what? I'll say this. When Devontae Smith won the Heisman and he came into the league, I honestly wanted to look like this because I thought that first hit was going to kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, he is tiny out there. But then on the flip side, you've seen what he's doing. I mean, he helped take his team to the Super Bowl. Like, I just feel like these guys have been playing against bigger guys, and that speed, you just can't – that's unmatched. I feel like I still – it's not going to stop me from looking in his direction. I'll say that.
Okay.
But at the same time, if I can get something bigger, if I could get something, a little more meaty, somebody that can, if he gets jammed, if he has to go up against DK Metcalf or AJ Brown the line, they're not just going to throw him to the side. And you know what I mean? Like I need somebody that could take that first little bump or first little check and make some kind of impact on the receiver, so we'll see. I don't want a smaller guy. I'm like you. The speed is great, but I don't want a smaller guy.
Then why are you questioning Deonte Banks at 16? Then, if you want somebody with size who won't get
from Maryland, he went to Maryland. We know what people that went to Maryland did. I mean, they left the ACC because they couldn't handle Tar Heel Nation.
Oh my gosh!
Let's go, baby.
How many times do I have to say wide receivers and corners? Maryland produces them. They're not bad. Don't sleep on these guys. The other folks, yeah. By all means.
Do not let Maryland and North Carolina play somehow in a bowl this year because we're going to go to both games. All right.
That'd be fun.
And
let's get the Belk Bowl going with that.
Let's go.
All right. So we're talking size here. I got someone for you.
Okay.
Julius Brents of Kansas State, 6'4", 202, but he runs a 4.53 40.
Ooh,
what are your thoughts on it? This guy's got the size, but can he run with people? I'd be curious what was Benjamin St. Juice's 40.
Yeah. was his 40? I'm interested to see what he does. I didn't get a chance to see as much of him in college. I love his size, and I mean, apparently, he's a pro prospect, pretty solid. I like it. I don't know that I would go first.
Oh gosh, no. These are probably second, third round picks.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, definitely that way. I hate to say that I just don't have that much info on him. When I was looking at Kansas State, my main focus was looking at Deuce Vaughn, that running back. You know what I mean? I think Martinez is that quarterback. Like, so I'm interested to see what he brings to the table. If we're talking just by the specs, just by the measurables, so I mean, like you said, 6'3", 200, 4.5 speed, like this is that's the type of size you definitely would want compared to the under 180. You want a guy that's bigger, it's got a little more meat on him. And hey, Kansas State shocked some teams, made it all the way to the Big 12 championship. So, he was part of that run. So I'd be interested to see. I would have to do a little bit more research on him to see what it is. But size, oh yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I love that size.
I know there's another guy from Miami, Tyreek Stevenson. He's 6'2", 215. So it makes me wonder, can he also play, position flex with safety with that type of size? Obviously that's someone who can lay a little thumping on somebody. But I don't have any of the other notes on him, so I don't really know why I put him down there other than size. Is there anyone else that we haven't mentioned that you have your eyes on?
At safety, Sidney Brown out of Illinois, but a similar size. He's short in 5'10", but he's 211, 4.4 speed. You know what I mean? Very athletic for a safety. Press people with his speed, but more his explosiveness. And then you and I mentioned the size. Bigger guy, tougher guy, be able to jam up. And also he's one of those type of guys that if the ball gets up there, he can have that hit that will dislodge the ball from the receiver. And
or catch it. He led them in 6 picks this year.
Well, see, there you go. You know what I mean? But as far as size, that's definitely what I definitely like what he brings to the table.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Hold on here. I'm checking to see if my internet's going to go. Nope, it's looking good. You mentioned an Illinois safety, and they brought in his counterpart in for a visit, Jartavius Martin, because he can play corner and safety. He has position flex. He can also potentially play inside, which they would be interested in. So that could be someone that they would like. We kind of feel like, do we really need another safety? But if you've got someone who can play either position, that is a very valuable option.
Trey Dean will be there deep in the draft, in my opinion, out of Florida. Another size guy, 6'2", 200. Not as quick, but he's more fluid. He's one of those guys that, the transition from backpedaling to, making the break or doing that is it happens more naturally. A lot of quick feet. He can guard out on the perimeter or in the slot, and his speed definitely helps him with that. So I like that. They were that whole defense was struggled this year under Napier, but they had moments where they actually showed up, and Dean, I think, was one of those pieces to that puzzle. So that's at safety. So, but this is bigger guys. Just taking a look at some of these guys that we're looking at on here.
Yeah. Well, there's one other guy that I saw at safety, and it has a lot to do with position flex, and that's Jay Ward of LSU. He's 6 foot. He didn't run the fastest 40, 4.55, but he played corner and safety for LSU, which I thought could be, obviously pretty helpful. But that speed does concern me a little bit with that. Is he going to be able to keep up? But he was, like you mentioned, the fact that he has some position flex is about the real reason why I was like, oh, okay, all right, I can see why there's some interest there.
Oh yeah. And what I've heard of, he's one of those guys that's what's it called? This guy's really good ball skills. Like, knows how to make the play, jump up at the right time to get the ball. If it's up there in the secondary. So, hey, again, we'll see. But there's so many guys here. There's so many guys.
It's so deep.
Yeah, and which is great because I feel like 2 It's not. I feel like getting 2, potentially 3 guys is not out of the question. You know what I mean? As far as corners, 2 corners potentially, get a corner and a safety, something like that, where we need, because we need that. We absolutely need to bring more guys in here. And one other thing that I want to look at, we talked about Benjamin St. Juste. We talked about, there's a Bud Curl was out for a while with his injury. I want to look at guys. Injuries they just happen randomly. It's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes. But I want to look at guys that don't have that injury history. We have really been hit by the injury bug over the last several years. And we've seen that's really played a huge role in our success or lack of success. So I really want to see, again, this is no rhyme or reason, but I really want to see if these guys are I want healthier guys that may not have had that injury before. I mean, I look back at RG3, he had I know at least one of his knees was blown out in college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we saw that up there. So that's, and albeit, I don't think it wasn't the same knee. I think it was the other knee that,
right.
Yeah. So, you can't say you saw that stuff coming, but still it's in the back of your mind. Let's just look at that. That's just my 2 cents on that little part right there.
There's a lot of teams that put up those red flags too, just like you said, and go, nah, I don't want to, if I have to choose between A or B, I'm going to choose B instead, as a result of it.
Well, we look out Nakobe Dean. I mean, you see how far he dropped last year, all the way to the 3rd round, and Philly got him in a steal because of the injury. So
was he a steal? Did he play?
That's the thing. I mean, they would have, by the way he was projected, they would have said it was a steal. But I mean, we haven't seen what he's done on the actual field,
and we may see him this year. I think they lost TJ Edwards, and so you may actually. I think they lost. Who was the other linebacker that they lost? Kaiser White. I think he went elsewhere too. So now you actually may get to see if they got the steal. All right, so I'm gonna kind of put us on the spot here. Especially with corners, because that seems to be where that position has a lot of depth here.
Yeah.
1st round, 2nd round, later rounds. Give me some names in the 1st round that you would be okay with at 16.
At 16, obviously this guy won't be there, but if Weatherspoon was there, I would pick him up. My first guy is Christian Gonzalez. I love his speed. I love his size. I mean, I love what he brings to the table. I've watched him this year. So that was my first pickup. But if I got Devin Witherspoon, I would not have an issue with it. You and I mentioned the Porters and the Ringos. That would, for me, if we traded back, I would get them first. But for me, I might take my chances on it. On seeing if they're still around. And a lot of this, like you said, has to do with the line and the O-line and if they're going to be here. Turner is somebody I'm looking at for 2nd, 3rd round. City Brown, I was talking to you about that. A lot of these guys, honestly, I want to go early. I want to get some of these guys, the top guys, pick them up early. I talked to you about this last year. I was extremely bummed when we missed out on getting Kyle Hamilton. I thought he could have been an X factor for us in the defense last year. So I want to really go after one of these guys early and get a primetime player off the board, bring him into Washington, and let's start him training out right now. So I want one of those top tier guys early if we don't go line. Ringo and Cam Smith, DJ Turner, some of those guys, if, either we trade back or maybe early 2nd and they're still around.
Right.
And then we'll see what happens later on down the line.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you. If I had my choices besides saying like Christian Gonzalez falls to us, I think I'd rather see us go corner in the 1st round, because I feel like in the 2nd and 3rd, there's a chance there to get an interior offensive lineman will be there that can plug and play as a starter. And like you said, there's a chance to get a more impactful DB on. So I'm kind of with you with some of those names. I'll throw my Maryland guy in there and say if they draft him in the 1st round, sure, I'll be happy. And if they are able to trade back and get him, then I'd be even more happier. You kind of talked me a little bit more into Cam Smith about maybe not being so concerned if that happened in the 2nd round. But I am with you. Size concerns me. And if I don't know, I just got shades to remember Fred Smoot in his early on just being thrown to the ground by wide receivers trying to tackle him trying to tackle him. He's like, get out of my way.
He can talk better than anybody. The mouth
from the
South,
without a doubt, right?
Without a doubt. But yeah, it didn't take it. It's like that little gnat. Just get off me, like
right, exactly.
He was tiny with it, so
yeah. I don't know. I might have to say, like, if they're willing to change the defense around, I could get really excited about Joey Porter Jr. if they're willing to change the defense.
But I'm glad you made that point, because that plays a big part in, because we were really excited when we got William Jackson III last year. Mm-hmm. And then once we realized kind of how scheme and everything was working, that he wasn't fitting, and mind you, it was, for him, we seen it was a communication thing. It was, he wasn't talking or he wasn't on the same page, but he was completely blowing coverages and everything.
Yeah.
So maybe us getting these guys in early and having off season with them and working with them, and they're younger. You know what I mean? It's one thing if you've been at one place and then now you're coming to another place. You know how they did it here. Now you're switching up. With these guys coming in, maybe they're going to jump on board to what we got going on. So yeah, with it.
I hear you.
I am with it. All right, man. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being here with us, talking linebackers, defense, D-line, tackles, safeties, corners, everything, trying to figure out what we need. This is the place that we need to address our secondary, our linebackers, our defense. We need to cover this. So that's why we focused this entire 90 minutes on looking at the defense and some of the things that we need in the coming future. Will, we are going to have a guest on here next week, correct?
I hope so.
Yes, he said yes. Sorry. Okay. I was correct as in yes, correct. Yes. Alex Loosefore said he'd be willing to join us on the show next week. And I know, ladies and gentlemen, if you have followed him, him and I do Let's Talk College Football. Yeah, encyclopedia.
You two have a fantastic show, especially right now with Draft Talk.
Oh, it's perfect. Oh, this is the dream. I love this time of the year. So he definitely does that with me. He's also going to be on Washington Football Weekly next week. He has his show called Restoring the Roar on Tuesday nights at, I believe, 9 p.m. Eastern, where he talks about his Detroit Lions. That's his favorite team. So we want to bring him in as an outsider, an outside perspective, looking in Washington. What does he think we should do? How does he think we look at the moment? And then also, since we do a college show, he's going to give us a little bit of, who he thinks we should potentially go for, what picks would be good picks for us, et cetera, and so on. So stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen, because I guarantee you're not going to want to miss it, as the draft literally is 2 weeks away. And the excitement mounts. It mounts, ladies and gentlemen.
I like it. Oh,
yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you, like I said, being here with us on Washington Football Weekly. It is your boy, Will Kramer, Sean Spencer over here. Please come back, join us. Stay tuned for all the stuff we got going on. I know tomorrow night is Thursday. The new show with Ash, Tina, and Nicole, I believe, is coming, called Out of Pocket. It's an all-ladies show where they're talking about a lot of the off-season stuff that's going on, some of the trades and free agent moves that are still happening, and also leading up to the draft. Okay. Also, tomorrow's NFL edition with Alex and Johnny Dean, where they're kind of doing a little bit of the same thing, some trivia. And then NSD is on Saturday, where they giving prizes away, talking about the Buccaneers, talking about the Steelers with Sydney Swinton on there. And, hey, just overall having a good time, man. So we enjoy the talk. We enjoy going back and forth with you. We enjoy you. Appreciate you being here with us. And, hey, that's where we're at.
Yep.
So for my guy, Will Kramer, it's your boy, Sean Spencer. We are going to go ahead and get out of here. And we'll see you next time, people. Have a good rest of your week.